in every discounted cash flow valuation comes from its terminal value, usually well in the future. But what if distress is not temporary and there is a very real chance that the firm will not survive to get to the terminal value? So it is argued that we tend to overvalue firms such as these in traditional valuation models because it is difficult to capture fully the effect of such distress in the expected cash flows and the discounted rate. The degree to which traditional valuation models misvalue distressed firms will vary depending on the care with which expected cash flows are estimated, the ease with which these firms can access external capital markets, and the consequences of distress. While making the assumptions of discounted cash flow valuation, DCF models will not explicitly consider the possibility of distress, and when analysts can get away with ignoring distress, the value of the firm will go wrong. We follow up by considering ways in which we can adjust discounted cash flow models to explicitly allow for the possibility of distress. We also will discuss how distress is considered in relative valuation and ways of adjusting multiples for the possibility of failure. We also will discuss on why equity in deeply distressed firms may continue to have value because of the limited liability feature and option characteristics of publicly traded equity. So we deal in detail about the cost of distress and the incorporation of this expected distress in valuing the firm. What are the possibilities and what are the consequences of financial distress? All of us know growth is not inevitable and firms will not remain as going concerns. Even large publicly traded firms sometimes become distressed for one reason or another, and the consequences of value will be serious. So, we will discuss some of the common forms of distress and the possibilities of distress in detail. That is, when financial distress is far more common in real world that most of us assume it to be fact. In fact, even casual empirical observation suggests that a very large number of firms, especially smaller and higher growth ones, will not survive and will go out of business. Some will fail because they borrow money to fund their operations and then they are unable to make these debt payments. Others will fail because they do not have the cash to cover their operating needs. To get a measure at the probability of distress, we have to begin to define distress. If we define broadly as firms that are having trouble making interest payments and meeting other contractual commitments, distress is much more common in such kind of firms. What are the consequences of distress? That is, distress means the financial failure, that is, if a company fails to arrange funds for its working capital for longer time period, that is more than a year, if it fails to pay off its debts, if it fails to pay off to the creditors, then we say it is a financial failure from the company's end. When firms are unable to make their debt payments, they have to liquidate their assets. They often bargain basement prices and use the cash to pay off debt. If there is any cash that is left over after paying off all its debts, which is highly unlikely, it will be paid out to its equity investors. Firms that are unable to make their operating payments also have to suffer themselves to the higher bidder, and the proceeds will be distributed to the equity investors. So, in fact, the cost of distress stretch far beyond the conventional cost of bankruptcy and liquidation. The perception of distress can do serious damage to a firm's operations as employees, customers, suppliers, and lenders react. Firms that are viewed as distressed lose customers, they lose sales, they have higher employee turnover, and have to accept much tighter restrictions from suppliers than healthy firms do. These indirect bankruptcy costs can be catastrophic for many firms and essentially make the perception of distress into a reality. So the magnitude of these costs has been examined in studies and it ranges from 10 to 25% of the firm value. So to summarize, the possibility and cost of distress are too far too substantial and it is too substantial to be ignored in valuation. So we will be using the discounted cash flow method and the distress in discounted cash flow valuation and adopting discounted cash flow valuation in distress situations are discussed and the simulations, the modified discounted cash flow valuation are all discussed in detail while incorporating distress while valuing a firm. We also will discuss the different methods to deal with the cost of distress. So that is how to deal the cost of distress separately. The going concern discounted cash flow method that is used for considering the distress. And so on. And I would like to throw light on how to deal with distress by using adjusted present value method and also how the distress can be dealt under relative valuation. Relative valuation also plays an important role or also gives a relevant values of a firm when it is adopted. So in the next topic, the way that is discusses the role of governments in the issue of IPOs and the activities of mergers and acquisitions. So what is the regulatory body that is being in existence to regulate the activities of mergers and acquisitions? How the Securities Exchange Board of India provides Securities and Exchange of India provide the regulatory aspects to deal with such activities of mergers and acquisitions. How a company has to get listed in the stock exchanges, what is the procedure to get listed in the stock exchanges, and when the company wanted to subscribe the shares to public by issuing shares to the public, what is the procedure, what how that is starting from consulting the lead managers, preparing the prospectus, and till the issue, till the subscription advertisement in the newspaper for subscriptions, what are the different procedures that is being laid down and what are the things that has to be followed by the companies, who are the parties to be involved in uh, issuing the securities or in pricing the securities and issuing it to the public. So all these will be dealt in detail in day 2 of this week. And in day 3, so I will be discussing with the value-based management concept. Many institutional investors who were passive traditionally have begun exerting influence on corporate managements to create value for shareholders. Many leading companies like Reliance, Coca-Cola, Siemens, Hindustan Unilever, and Infosys Technologies have afforded value creation as a central place in their corporate planning. They serve as a role model for others. Business press is emphasizing shareholder value creation in performance rating exercises. Great attention is now being paid to link top management compensation to shareholders' returns. To help firms create value for shareholders, value-based management approaches have been developed. What is this value-based management approach? This approach represents a synthesis of various business disciplines. From finance, VBM has adopted the goal of shareholders' value maximization and the discounted cash flow model. From business strategy, it has borrowed the notion that value creation stems from exploiting opportunities based on the firm's comparative advantage. From accounting, it has adopted the structure of financial statements with some modifications, and finally, from organizational behavior, it has borrowed the notion that you get what you measure and regard. That is, it is the synthesis of various business disciplines. It has taken into consideration all aspects of the business disciplines. So, under value based management, we will discuss the principal VBM approaches that is been developed by leading consulting organizations, which is organized into 7 sections like methods and key premises of valuation, value-based management, the Marathon approach, the Alker approach, the McKinsey approach, Stern-Stewart approach, BCG approach, and the lessons learned from the experiences of VBM adopters. So in this week, we will be discussing and throwing light on methods and key premises of value-based management, Marathon approach and Alker approach in detail. That is, the different approaches for valuing a firm under value-based management. Several methods have been used in value-based management, and the three principal methods are the free cash flow method that is being proposed by McKinsey and Alker Group, the economic value added or the market value added method pioneered by the Stern Stewart and Company, and the cash flow return on investment to cash value added, the method that is being developed by BCG and Old Value Associates. The common premises of all these approaches are the basic premises that are underlying, that are saying are the value of any company or its individual strategies and investments is equal to the present value of the future cash flows the company is expected to produce. This is one common approach that is being practiced in either of the approaches of value-based management. Conventional accounting earnings are not a sufficient indicator of value creation. That is, the historical performance, historical analysis will not serves as a sufficient indicator of value creation. Why? Because they are not the same as cash flow. They do not reflect risk. They do not include an opportunity cost of capital. They do not consider time value of money, and they are not calculated the same way by all firms because of variations and the accounting policy that is being adopted by all these firms. For managing shareholder value, firms should use metrics that are linked to value creation and employ them consistently in all facets of financial management. A well-designed performance measurement and incentive compensation system is essential to motivate employees to focus their attention on creating shareholders' value. So these are the key premises that all the approaches of value-based management have stood upon. Now, the key differences of these approaches are these methods relates to the value-based management metrics. For example, the Alpha method uses shareholder value added. The Stern-Stewart method emphasizes on economic value added and market value added, and BCG approach will focus on CFROI and CVA. Each approach argues that its measures are the best and cites supporting evidence for the same. And it is difficult to assess the validity of these claims. While the different methods of BVM have their own fan clubs, the EVA to market MBA method seems to have received more attention and gained more popularity. That is to say, the Stern-Stewart approach has gained more popularity out of the available value-based management approaches. So we will take upon the different approaches of value-based management, what are the considerations under each approach, and to start with, I will be explaining about Marathon approach. Marathon Associates, it is an international management consulting firm founded in 1978, and it has done pioneer work in the area of value-based management. It has been described in the book The Value Imperative, authored by James McTaggart, Peter W. Pounds, and Michael C. Mankins. The key steps in this marathon approach are specify the financial determinants of value, understand the strategic drivers of value, formulate higher value strategies, and develop superior organizational capabilities. How to specify the financial determinants of value? So this marathon approach is based on a market to book ratio model, and according to this model, shareholder wealth creation is measured as the difference between the market value and the book value of a firm's equity. The book value of equity measures approximately the capital contributed by the shareholders, whereas the market value of equity reflects how productively the firm has employed the capital contributed by the shareholders as assessed by the stock market. Hence, the management creates value for shareholders if market value exceeds the book value, decimates value if market value is less than the book value, and maintains value if market value and book value are equal. And hence, according to this approach, the market to book value ratio is a function of the return on equity, the growth rate of dividends, and as well as earnings and the cost of capital. cost of equity or cost of capital. So I will be explaining the derivations of the equations and how the value could be created when there is a positive spread between the return on equity and the cost of equity, and when R greater than K, which is explained in detail, the higher the G, the higher the market to book value ratio, which means when the spread is positive, a higher growth rate contributes more to value creation. So the next step is to understand the strategic determinants of value. The key financial determinants of value are the spread between the return on equity and the cost of equity and the growth rate in dividends. So now our focus of discussion is what influences these factors. The two primary strategic determinants of spread and growth, and hence value creation are market economics and competitive position. Market economics refers to the structural factors that determine the average equity spread as well as the growth rate applicable to all competitors in a particular market segment, and the competitive position of a firm refers to its relative position in terms of equity spread and growth rate vis-a-vis the average competitor in its product market segment. So, and this competitive position is shaped by two factors, product differentiation and economic cost position. Once the strategic determinants of value are understood, the next step is to formulate higher value strategies. Value is created by participating in attractive markets and building a competitive advantage. Thus, the key elements of firm strategy are its participation strategy and its competitive strategy, where the participation strategy defines the product markets in which it will compete, and the competitive strategy spells out the means the management will employ to build competitive advantage and overcome competitive disadvantage in the market served by it. Developing the competitive strategy involves three tasks: differentiation of the product or service offerings, management of business units cost and assets, and pricing of the product or service offerings. Once the higher value strategies has been formulated, then superior organizational capabilities has to be developed. These higher value strategies are designed to overcome the forces of competition, and these strategies, capabilities should be combined with the superior organizational capabilities that enable a firm to overcome the internal barriers to value creation and to counter institutional imperatives. So we will discuss what are the organizational capabilities and how this has to be combined with the higher value strategies in order to reap or in order to increase the value of a business or to create the value of the business. Then I will be discussing about the Alker approach, and this approach is developed by the Alker Group Inc., a management education and software company, and this approach is based on discounted cash flow analysis. While discussing Alker approach, we will be discussing about the determinants of shareholders' value like the rate of sales growth, operating profit margin, income tax rate, investment in working capital, fixed investment capital, cost of capital, value growth duration, and also we will discuss about the assessment of shareholder value that impacts the business unit strategy. And also the steps involved in assessing the shareholder value is discussed in detail, which involves forecasting the operating cash flow stream for the business unit over the planning period, discounting the forecasted operating cash flow stream using weighted average cost of capital, finding out the residual value of the business unit at the end of the planning period, and finding its present value, determining the total shareholders' value, establishing the strategy value, and interpreting the value created by the strategy. We also will discuss the shareholder value management cycle with an illustration, that is, a successful implementation of shareholder value management means that the firm selects a strategy that maximizes the expected shareholder value and finds the highest valued use of all the assets and bases performance evaluation and incentive compensation on shareholder value addition and returns cash to shareholders when value creating investments do not exist. So we will discuss with an example the shareholder value management cycle, which helps to create a value of an organization in more detail. So this is the plan for week 9 sessions, and I'll try to go as far as the plan is concerned. Thank you.